us as well. And then we can just go live. Yeah, no, I think at this stage in our life, nothing is a surprise anymore. Hey?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we were also just informed this morning as well that my age group is now qualified for the vaccination. So we're quite excited about that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We are now live and we're going to kick off then. So I'm just going to do a quick intro and then we'll get going. Matt.
Right.
Perfect. So welcome to everybody on our Friendly Fridays, a bit later today than normal, just because we've got our dear guest all the way from Boston, Massachusetts. So he's also just waking up, or at least it's already 8 o'clock where he is, but shame we couldn't have got him on the call at 6 a.m. his time. So yeah, just thanks everybody for sharing with us. And as we say, like-minded people who like to share and share alike. As we are joined today by Matt Robinson from the Robinson Reporter and talking about writing books today. So not only an author himself, but also giving some advice to entrepreneurs in terms of also challenged and getting to write your own book. So thanks so much, Matt, for joining us all the way from Boston. We look forward to sharing with you.
Should be wicked fun, as we say here in Boston.
Is it wicked fun? I like that. Fun. Okay, let me just do a quick intro to Matt. Matt Robinson has been a professional writer, ghostwriter, editor, and communications professional for over 25 years. He has also taught writing and literature for 2 decades. After publishing thousands of articles, many of which he can be seen on his website at therobinsonreporter.com, and supporting other writers with their projects, Matt finally published his first book in 2019, Lions, Tigers, and Bulldogs, an unofficial guide to the legends and ire of the Ivy League. Was inspired by the many trips to Brown University took with his father as a child, and is dedicated to his father, who succumbed to dementia in 2014. In it, Matt shares fun facts about these historic schools. He has also presented the book all over the world and is here today to share it with us. Sure, that is a story in its own. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Hello, South Africa and everybody else.
Yeah. So let's go straight into it, because I think you've got so much to share, and you know, your life, as we say and we've seen, and as we all know, our lives are a story in their own. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, and as I know you know, in terms of how you like to share a story. And
well, I've always been interested in words and in language. My mother had been an English teacher. I just, so, you know, always had books around and poetry, and my mother had also done advertising before I was born, so kind of always kind of aware of marketing and things of that nature, and just way led on to way. And I started writing. I had worked in radio, so I started in the music industry, and I actually got to interview Sir Richard Branson once, which was a huge thrill.
Oh, wow.
And you know, these days I've been writing a lot about education, about food, and you know, now I have 2 8-year-olds at home, so I was home with them a lot during the pandemic, but hoping to get back on the horse with teaching and writing some more. And you know, the big step was the book 2 years ago. For many years, people were saying, you know, where's your book? Where's your book? You've been a writer for so long. But when, you know, when paid assignments are coming in, it's hard to justify working on something that's more for yourself. But you know, when my dad got sick, I just realized, you know, it's time. And it was a lot more complicated a process than I thought. You know, you see all the books in the bookstores. Oh, anyone can do this. But it was quite a process. It took about 5 years from start to finish. But yeah, I'm happy with the result. I actually just presented it last night to an audience of about 50 people from all over the New York area, and I've been meeting great people and hearing great stories. So it's really added a new dimension to my writing life.
That sounds amazing. And I didn't want to ask you when I read your bio, but I see it did take you some time to write your own. But yeah. I have to agree with you. As you say, if the paid work is coming in, ours has to take a back seat. So that's sure, that's a very interesting, family upbringing and very creative space, hence all the books behind you as well.
Yeah,
So,
these are this is my book, and these are some I've just helped the authors with.
oh wow, okay, that's awesome. And what is your purpose, and why is writing so essential to this?
I really like to support others. I do spots on a Boston radio station about food, and I really focus on entrepreneurs and independent people who are like making brownies in their basement and are now selling them at the farmers market. I grew up. My stepfather had a family-owned retail business in New England that was kind of put to bed by Walmart. So I've always been a champion of the little guy and the independent, and so that's really how I've made my living, is just working with entrepreneurs, doing website copy and press releases and things of that sort. I try to keep my price points low and just really try to reach out to as many people as I can. The frustration lately is that a lot of people think that they can do it themselves. Even I found it's really hard to write about yourself. But a lot of people think that with blogs and things they can all do it. The problem is that I found is, if you're an independent entrepreneur, it's hard to run your business and write about it on a regular basis. So that's hopefully a number of my clients come to me and say, you handle the writing, and I'll take care of the business at hand. So that works as a good combination.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's always easier for us to assume we can write our own, but having that fresh and external perspective just adds a totally different dimension, right? And it just gives the
I think
story
so.
a different perspective. Um, so that's great. So you're very much about entrepreneurs and supporting entrepreneurs and growing businesses from the ground up, not just supporting the big guys. So tell us a little bit more specifically about your book, Lions, Tigers, and Bulldogs, and also the good and the bad in kind of putting it together. As you already said, it took you 5 years. So
Yeah.
share a little bit about the book and how it all came together.
But as we've referred to, the inspiration was really my father. He had gone to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, which is one of the the Ivy League schools. Others are Harvard and Yale and Princeton and University of Pennsylvania. They're 8 of the oldest schools in the United States. And the football there is American football is
Yes,
not
American
really
football.
much to look at. It's not like watching the Rose Bowl or the big teams. So I became really intrigued by the mascot, who was this person in a bear costume, just completely uninhibited, having a wild time. I really fell in love with it, and it kind of stuck with me to the point that when I was young and people said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I would say, "I want to be the brown bear." Um, but the mascot thing just I developed. I don't know how, this sort of odd talent that people could name a school and I could name the mascot. So it just became an interest for me, and it stuck with me, like I said. And I got to know people who went to some of the other schools, and obviously they all have very rich histories, as old as they are, with the famous alumni and the inventions and things, the traditions. And so, as I said, the book had kind of been on the back burner on my desktop for years and years. And then, unfortunately, the impetus was my father getting sick and realizing that, it had to see the light of day. I didn't want to die on the vine, as it were.
Yeah.
So I dug it out of my desktop and looked at it again and started doing a lot of research and contacting people I knew who had gone to the schools, getting a lot of great personal anecdotes. And that's ongoing. I'm always adding to my list of information, and people ask me when the next volume is coming out, but volume 1, as you
Okay.
said, took a long time, so I'm not quite sure how soon
How
I want
often?
to go through it again. But basically the process was, I found a publisher who did books about colleges where the mascot would kind of take you on a tour of the school. And so that seemed to really be a perfect fit. Unfortunately, before we had even looked into permissions and licensure, they started, they told me, "We're ready to go to press," and they sent me the draft, and it was all these pictures from the school's websites that
Yeah.
obviously we had no right to use at that point. And I was like, guys, these are billion-dollar entities. If one of them chooses to take umbrage at our using their things without license,
Yeah.
we're all in trouble. And the publisher said, quote unquote, "Don't worry about it." And I said, I'm going to take my business elsewhere. Thank you. You know, it was sad because it really seemed to be a perfect match, but
Yeah.
I really didn't want to deal with those potential legal issues. And the book is meant to be complimentary and positive, so I didn't want any trouble.
Mm.
So I started to look into the licensing, and that on its own took about 2 years. There were so many people involved, and
Oh,
actually, one of the schools never actually approved it. But I was advised that if I put the word unofficial on the cover and put a disclaimer on the title page,
you'd
that
be covered.
everything would be okay. I sent the draft to all the school presidents, to all the school licensing offices, and either they didn't respond, or they approved, or they wrote back and said, "This is fine. This seems very positive.
Mm.
Go for it." And so I ended up self-publishing. So I kind of got a look down both roads, the traditional publisher route and the self-publishing route, both of which were actually, again, more complicated than I thought. There are so many self-publishing platforms available now. It took a long time to pick the way I was going to go. Also, again, talking about the independents, a lot of independent bookstores led me to understand that if I worked with that certain store that runs everything these days, that they wouldn't take my book. So basically, I found a smaller published printer to print the book, worked with the independent bookstores, and then basically, when that road had been run, I succumbed to the pressures, and
Yeah.
the book is now available on that long South American river.
Okay.
that I don't know if I should name in public, but and people know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I found a great illustrator. He really kind of got my vision. That was my first phone call. Someone recommended him, so that was terrific. Just
That's a
that was
key
really
thing, isn't it?
yeah.
Illustration. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, this book, people think it's not really a comic book, but it's mostly illustrated. So, he and I worked well together. Whenever I found a typo or wanted to change something, he had to do the whole page over. But he was very understanding, and we had a great relationship. His name is Jim Roldan. He's an art teacher in New Hampshire, and I just sing his praises to the highest. I recommend him to any other authors who need an illustrator. So that was very fortunate. And the upshot has been that, in addition to being able to honor my late father, I've been able to meet such amazing people. And last night I did an event for an alumni club in New Jersey for the Columbia University. 50 people came on, and it went for almost 2 hours because the conversation just got so rich. And I woke up this morning to tons of emails saying, I really learned something, and it was so much fun. And that, as hard as it's been, having those it's the same thing like when one of my clients says, thank you for doing this newsletter, you really helped promote my event, what have you. That really makes it all worthwhile, as difficult as freelancing these days can
Can
be.
be, yeah. Okay, so that's really a good story to hear, because it's not, like you say, it's both personal and it's creative. It's something that you aspire to. It's something that brings back good memories. It's something that people can relate to. So who's your kind of target market for the book, may I ask?
Well, I meant it at first. It was going to be kind of a children's introduction,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess that's where the kind of the visual comic booky
Yes.
idea came from. But when I got past the mascots and started expanding it to the history of the schools, etc., I originally I was targeting it to alumni, students, staff. A number of people have told me that their children are applying to these schools, and it helped them kind of impress the interviewer with a little odd fact. But then I'll never forget, I was up in my office, up where I am now in the attic of my house, and it was very late at night, and my then 7-year-old, one of my twins, came upstairs and said, "Daddy, I read your book. It's good."
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome.
So I have little stickers that say, "It's good, Shira Robinson, age 7." That was like the best review I've ever had.
I'm sure.
So apparently it's 8 to 80. Someone told me last night that, they're sending a copy to their 80-year-old father who was an alumnus, a long time ago. So, I hope it appeals to a broad audience. That's been, that's what people have led me to understand. And, again, when I get feedback either from my daughter or from other readers, that, that really, makes it all worthwhile. That's really what's been the best part.
So then, thank you for sharing that with us. So I think, it clearly sounds like it's not such an easy task to get to a book, because as you say, it's whether you go self-publish, whether you which route you go in terms of the printing, then as you say, just the legalities, obviously getting the illustrations right. I mean, I'm sure you maybe were just lucky enough to get an illustration up front that you could rely on, but I mean, and then there's ghostwriting and there's writing, and so it all kind of comes together. And as you say, I mean, yours took you 5 years. So maybe if you can just share with us a few like top tips for those entrepreneurs that are thinking about now putting their own kind of book together. What are the key things that one needs to really consider before, like you assumed, just writing a book because it's so easy?
I just as a sideline, I remember many years ago, I was having lunch with an agent who was the agent for a pretty significant publisher, writer that I knew. And we were at this huge bookstore in Boston, which is no longer there. And she waved her hands over the shelves and shelves of books and said, what percentage of these books do you think actually cover the advance that they get from the publisher? And I guessed, I don't know. I said, I think I said around 30%. She said 8%.
Yeah.
She said, basically, it's like the J.K. Rowling and the Stephen Kings of the world. Those, a handful are bankrolling the entire industry, which is why today, even traditional publishers, will not market you. They will not do PR for you. They really want you to do most of the work that I'm doing as an independent publisher yourself. In fact, a number of other writers who have traditional publishers have come to me to help with their marketing. So one of the lessons I learned is you really have to be ready to do it on your own, even if you have the support of another entity. Another big tip, and this is something I even tell to my writing students, is get a team of Did I lose you?
No, I can see you.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you are. Okay. Sorry. It went away for a second. Get a team of allies together. I check in regularly with some authors that I've worked with on these books. We just kind of keep each other accountable. Have you pitched your book this week? How many new sales have you had? Just try to, keep each other motivated. But the most important thing is that you really need to be the last set of eyes on any writing. You can't, so many, especially my students, they say, oh, my tutor checked it, my sister checked it, I ran it through Grammarly. These things are great tools and great supports, but A, no one cares as much about your writing as you do, or at least should. And B, I just had, when I was working, sending this idea to other publishers before I found that publisher who did the college books, they would send back redlined drafts with all their suggested edits, and it completely lost its voice and my vision. You obviously have to make compromises sometimes, but I always say make sure that you're the last set of eyes before it goes public, because you really can't, as close as you may be to people, as professional and experienced. I mean, even with things that I do, I always send the draft back to the client before I distribute it.
Check.
But yeah, just because I wouldn't want them to come back afterwards and say, oh my goodness, what have you done? And I just got an email asking for widgets, and I don't make widgets, and so that's really the key, is just stay involved, stay on top of it. Which is again why it's a major investment. It's not something that, I mean, I've done ghostwriting, but that's really, I usually end up doing small articles for the person first to make sure that I can understand their voice. And then they always check what I've done before they send it to their publisher or send it out to a magazine or whatever their chosen route is.
Okay, awesome. So just to recap that, it's ready to do it on your own. Get a team of allies together to help you be accountable with actions, and be the last set of eyes before it goes public.
Those are probably the top three.
Okay.
Yeah, those would probably be the top three from my experience.
And maybe number 4, give yourself time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, I mean, to do anything right, you need to take the time, because rushing it at any point can, I mean, it's your reputation, so if you move too fast, and people will
see it in the quality. Yeah.
I mean, as a freelancer, there's always a pressure to be on time, I try to be ahead of deadline to kind of impress my editors and strengthen the relationship. But on occasion, I've sent stuff out with typos and things like that. So you really need to give it that one, when you think it's done, give it that one more look over. Yeah.
Okay, so just in finishing, what is the one thing that every entrepreneur needs to do once they have written their first book?
Well, again, I really think that you need to get other people who know you and that you can trust to look at it. The hard thing these days is a number of times, especially as a journalist, I've shared ideas and they get kind of co-opted. Someone else just runs with it, and I'll write to a publisher with a pitch, and they'll say they're not interested, and then they'll have one of their staff writers do the story anyway because it's
Yeah,
less expensive for them to have their staff writer do one more story than to pay an outsider. So, it's made me a little reticent to share, which is complicated matters. But again, I've been fortunate enough to find a real trusted circle that I can check things with. And the other main thing, I guess, is just to really know the market. I mean, like we were talking about the age group for my book. It started as one thing, ended up as something else. That can happen. I mean, obviously, you hope that the audience is larger than you expected. But again, especially with the major publishers, they want you to know who you're aiming for. That really that's kind of part of the pitch letter these days,
yeah,
and that you're willing to do the work. You have to really say. I mean, I tell my publishers I have 25 years of marketing experience, and we'll be able to take this most of the way, and that that's helped. So you know, um, know your market. Try to find a target audience and write to them, and then if you're lucky, it'll expand from there.
it'll come. And may I ask, do you have any books lined up or that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I've been slightly encouraged. I have been sending out other ideas,
Okay.
but it's really a tough process. I mean, I found a publisher recently who I had done reviews for their book, so I had a relationship with their marketing department, and I had an idea for a traditional children's book, and I sent it to my marketing friend, and she said, "Oh, this is great. Send it to my editor, and I'll shepherd it for you." And I looked on their website to see what else they had done, and they had some children's books. And so I wrote in my cover letter, "I've noticed that you've done sort of similar books. Mine is different because," and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I sent it to the editor. And a week later, he wrote back and said, "As you should know, we are not publishing children's books." I wrote to the marketing director again. I said, "What happened?" She said, I don't understand why he's saying that because we do."
That's what you
So
do. Oh
yeah,
no.
so I really, it's you just have to kind of find another avenue, pick yourself
Mm.
up. I mean, as a freelancer, I could wallpaper my house with my rejections, but if
Yeah,
if you
that
if you if you sit and feel sorry for yourself, you have to just keep moving
keep
forward,
moving
looking down
forward.
other avenues. Yeah, yeah.
Agreed.
So way leads on to way, and I mean, this is how we met. So obviously there are
Absolutely.
great experiences amidst all the amidst all the heartache.
Missed all the heartache and doing business online only at the
Yeah,
moment for us
yeah,
specifically in South Africa.
yeah.
Well, that's been awesome. Thanks, Matt. I really
Mhm.
appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing some short insights with us about a very long history of obviously family creativity, writing, and a special story with you and your late dad. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. So yeah, just to everybody, thanks for joining us. Next week, we'll be joined by Mayan Desai from Erupt Marketing, talking about Google My Business. And please, if you did enjoy our interview, go and like and subscribe, or go and share it with other people that are like-minded, that you feel maybe looking at writing a book or need some valuable content put together for your website, or potentially even a ghostwriter for your book. I'm sure Matt would be an ideal person to ask. So until next week, we'll be back at 12 p.m. South African time. Have a good weekend, everybody, and cheers.
Stay well,
Thanks
everybody. Thank
again,
you.
Matt.
Thank you.
Bye.